A few minutes later, Jack slowly opened his eyes. Not only had he failed to catch his daughter, but he had almost sent himself straight to the grave. Just then, his wife Emily came out of the store. Hearing the commotion, she rushed over. With his head pounding, Jack forced himself to stand, staring at his motionless daughter and his hysterical wife. He couldn't get a word out. He pushed Emily aside, unable to face the scene. But the moment he heard his daughter Sarah's faint voice, Jack snapped his head back. That feeling of losing her, and then suddenly getting her back left him completely shaken. The couple quickly checked Sarah's injuries. Luckily, it was just a broken arm. Jack immediately scooped her up and raced to the hospital. He drove recklessly, speeding, swerving into oncoming lanes, while Emily in the back seat kept urging him, "Faster, Jack, faster." They finally reached a small local hospital. Jack told Emily to sit with Sarah while he registered at the front desk, but the receptionist refused to let him cut in line, even for an emergency. Frustrated, Jack had no choice but to wait. When he finally got called up, it wasn't by a doctor, but by a clerk who asked him a series of strange questions, even about his blood type, and told him his insurance wouldn't work. Annoyed, Jack snapped, "Then I'll pay cash." After all the hassle, a nurse finally led them to a room. Dr. Borsham, the attending physician, came in to examine Sarah. Oddly enough, instead of focusing on her broken arm, he kept checking her eyes. Afterward, he pulled Jack and Emily aside and explained Sarah's pupils weren't responding normally. To be safe, she needed a brain CT scan, because if there was internal bleeding, the consequences could be fatal. No parent would ever say no to that. Soon, nurses prepared Sarah, even giving her a stuffed puppy for comfort. At the elevator, staff said only one parent could accompany her. Since Jack was injured himself, Emily went with Sarah while Jack stayed behind. But something felt off. The elevator didn't go up, it went down, into the basement. Hours passed. Jack dozed off in the waiting area, waking to find it was already afternoon. His car was still parked outside, untouched, as if nothing had happened. Dazed, he splashed his face with water and returned to the front desk to ask about his family. But now there was a different receptionist, who simply told him to keep waiting. Jack grew more uneasy. A scan shouldn't take this long. He demanded to see Dr. Borsham, only to be told the doctor had already gone home and passed the files to another physician. Things got stranger. The hospital records showed no trace of Sarah. Even the paper registration forms had been swapped out. His daughter's name nowhere to be found. Jack was furious. He stormed into the ward where Sarah had been placed, only to find a stranger and her son occupying the bed. Doctors and nurses insisted he had come in alone. Jack's panic spiraled into rage. He accused the hospital of covering up, of stealing patients for organ trafficking. He was restrained, sedated, and locked in a room. But Jack fought the drugs, injected himself with adrenaline, smashed a window, and escaped. He ran through the hospital searching desperately until he encountered two police officers outside. At first skeptical, they checked his ID and family photos, then agreed to accompany him inside. But once again, records and staff testimony all pointed to the same story. Jack had arrived at the hospital alone. Surveillance footage showed only him. Still, Jack refused to give up. In Sarah's old room, he found her scarf, stained with blood. At least this proved she existed. But the amount of blood was suspicious, far more than a broken arm would cause. Police began to suspect this was no accident scene, but a crime scene. A psychiatrist was brought in, suggesting Jack might be delusional, perhaps even responsible for harming his own family. As police prepared to arrest him, Jack's fragile mind clung to one last thread of hope. He pulled a gun, locked the officers and doctors away, and rushed back to the hospital basement himself. There, he found rooms filled with organ containers and bodies on operating tables. In a panic, he stumbled into an operating room, and in his mind, saw Emily and Sarah strapped down, prepped for surgery. He shot at the doctors, rescued them, and wheeled them out. Jack drove away, relieved, talking to his wife and daughter in the back seat. But when he glanced into the rearview mirror, Emily and Sarah were gone. Instead, lying unconscious was a random young patient. The truth? His wife and daughter had died from the very beginning. Their bodies were in the trunk all along. Unable to face reality, Jack's fractured mind created an elaborate illusion in which he was still their savior. In his delusion, he fought to protect his family, but in reality, he had already lost them forever.